Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Archetype. I'm your host, Ashley. How's it going? All right. Look at, we're in a different program. It's so exciting. Can't wait. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, please say hi in the chat. Always like to see who's watching, who's joining. If you have any questions, please ask away. But to give like a little recap, let's bring our little reference down. And so, yeah, so we're working on our little game character. This is a game character for a project that one of my personal projects that I'm working on. So we concept out this little kind of very Wyvern style dragon. And we have a lot of cool reference actually that could be pretty useful for some, maybe those eyeballs. Oh, those are so cool actually. I love that. I just noticed that detail. How fun. Who knows? Maybe he'll have eyeballs on his wings because of it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool colors and stuff actually that we can still reference. It seems like the circular thing's actually a pretty popular one on wings. So that might be something that we could go for. But I'm going to look at this reference as maybe an idea for like kind of more colors and more style as we work on our 3D version. So I'll have that up in another screen. But instead of being in ZBrush, we're now actually in Substance. So if you've never been in Substance, this is kind of what it looks like. And you can think of Substance Painter as like it's basically just a 3D Photoshop. So it's a lot of fun. But for this one, so you can basically paint using materials. So I can actually, if I slide this like roughness slider down, for example, you can see that stuff actually gets shinier or more reflective, as you can see, versus something when I turn up in the roughness. Now, because I'm doing kind of like a hand-painted texture look, I like to turn up the roughness really high, so that way it doesn't distract me from painting my own highlights and things like that. And later on, you can also look at different material views. So later on, I would also just go to base color, and I would just look purely at the base color without it being lit at all, just to make sure that everything's reading correctly. But until you get something in there, it's kind of hard to just go for it because you can't quite tell where, like, I don't know, the eyeball is, for example. But that's always a really useful channel. So I'll start by blocking out just like the basic colors, and then we can kind of start painting on top and detailing as we go along. I'll turn on symmetry as we go along here as well, which should help. But for now, I'm going to just start filling in kind of a base color. And our character here was kind of like this cool reddish teal. I can actually drag and drop, I think, straight from my canvas up here. So I can grab that exact color, which is pretty useful. And then from here, I'll just always duplicate. So I know I'll have this be his other color is like the gold. So I can either say maybe his like underbelly. And I will probably, to start, I'll make this, kind of like a golden color here. But I know I'll probably be adding more paint layers. So I'll actually make a folder here, and I'll put this in the folder, and then I'm gonna paint out the gold with a mask. Looking for my brush sizes. There we go. So now I can actually paint, gold on. But if I want to be more specific about it, I know that because it's a low poly asset, I know exactly where my gold polygons are. And so that's where it's really handy to have the 2D and the 3D view. So I can go ahead and look here in the 2D view, for example, and I can actually start filling in the exact polygons down the neck. And this is just an easier way to fill in and get started on painting kind of like a base. And you can have you can also have symmetry turned on, but in this case, these things are also overlaying each other. So by default, they are going to be symmetrical. But you can see how quickly we can fill in that body. Same thing with right here. The body's actually cut. You can see it's actually cut in half. So if I start painting on this even without symmetry, it'll transfer to one side. And the reason you do that is that way you have more texture space for these assets. Because he doesn't need to be this like super special, you know, super high res texturing type process kind of thing. So never stop doing these lives. I hope that means that you enjoy the stream. I'm assuming that means that you enjoy the stream. So thank you, McDaniel. I appreciate that. Oops. So now we have something like that. I can always blend this away, right? But it's really easy to kind of get a nice block out first of your colors. And I always paint within masks, right? So that way I can go into his underbelly, and as you can see, if I go, oh, this color isn't like saturated enough, I can easily crank up that saturation or kind of change the hue, and it can kind of easily follow along, right? So it's a real benefit to being able to kind of work this way. But I'll keep laying out his gold for now. I'll probably just go down to 1, maybe. And then maybe you can just kind of end off maybe around that area or so. Cool. I'll turn off my little keyboard here and drink some hot tea. Always cold, but it's kind of nice on a cold night to just sit and paint a dragon. I don't really have complaints about that. Cool. So now that we have that, I can go ahead and, again, I'll try to fill out any sort of block of color. So I can make a new folder, or not a new folder here. And maybe I can add his spines to one of these folders back here. Right, he's got these kind of like magenta spines, and his spines are all sharing one UV map, so that's actually pretty easy because I can actually delete that. I'm going to just copy his base, throw it into spines here, and I'll lower the value on them, and then I'm going to add a mask to the folder, and then I'll go ahead and pick that object there. And I can just I only have to pick one because, again, they share the UVs. So if I start painting on one, it'll paint on all of them, which is very helpful. So here we go. Go ahead and copy this, make a new folder, and maybe call it webbing. Right, so he's got little webbing pieces that are also kind of that same darkness, actually. So I can actually just take this same color, and I'll drop it into there. And do the same thing, add that black mask, and then again, because it's low poly, you can very easily grab these by, you know, the polygons and select those. And again, this goes across and through your model, so that's why I do like going into the 2D/3D view. So that way I can take a look at where that webbing is, for example. I just have to find the right one. And this is where the light will always kind of mess you up. But I do know, for example, like this right here is webbing. And so is that. Someone on YouTube saying, I think this model is hard to bake a normal map, but it's great. Yeah, so actually one thing is it doesn't really have a normal map yet because it's actually... So I didn't bake anything from a high-res. So this is using just purely the low-res model to paint. And anything that ends up in the null map will be stuff that's more like scales or maybe things like that. So I actually am not baking anything on this, which is why it doesn't have to look good for a bake, because I'm not doing that process. I'm just doing hand-painted low poly stuff. There's instances where you can still, you know, bake off of stuff and do all that jazz, but in this case, that's not the style that I'm going for in the game. And reason being is also partially because I am the sole character artist on this project. So that being said, I wanted to create a process for me that would allow me to have kind of the least amount of headaches on the project, right? So because of that, it's easier to not have to like match baking, and I just worry about, you know, nice poly painting type stuff and just kind of have fun painting it and keep it more relaxed. Oh, that's probably... It's always fun to see where... Oh, there it is. Looks like it's trying to paint through kind of weird, but that's okay. Okay. Yeah, I like getting the block out and then turning off the light as soon as possible, because it's easier to see what you're doing. I'm wondering if that's also kind of being funky because it's not perfectly symmetrical. I wonder if that's what it's doing. Grab these little guys here. And again, I try to find them on my 3D view here. Daniel's also asking, do I use Adobe Substance only for painting, or do you work the entire process? No, so I just use it for painting. I mean, I also use it. I use it for texturing. I'll say more of that, right? Because for my professional work, I tend to. I'm not doing hand painted stuff most of the time. I'm usually working on more realistic type stuff, and so because of that, I still use Substance for it. Substance is a really great in-game game engine kind of asset to use, which is really fun. Because you get to see like immediate results, which is what I think I like the most about it. You know, when you're working in game, a lot of stuff is becoming more and more real time, but it's really nice to be able to grab a model and take a look at the result immediately. And what you get in Substance is pretty close to what you would get in something like in Engine, you know, if you're working in something like the Unreal Editor or something like that. So oops, I picked a color. And then anything that I kind of missed as far as Now I can kind of fill in certain gaps and whatnot, right, that aren't maybe exactly a polygon that I can fill. But it's nice to start filling in using a polygon shape to begin with. Especially because, again, our style is something that's pretty low poly in general. So I'll go ahead and grab this and bring this up as well. And again, this is just kind of laying out and organizing different parts of the model, right? So I'm going to throw the eyes in there. I think it'll be fun to have each dragon have like a different colored pupil. I think that'll be kind of fun. Are you going to pick just the one color? No, you're going to be weird about it. It's so nice to me. Should let me do it in the I know that's not all one object, so I'm not quite sure why it's being so mean about it, but here we go. But yeah, I only use Substance for texturing and stuff, but for sculpting or modeling and stuff, I use ZBrush or Blender. I've always meant to try the Substance Modeler. It looks really cool. I just never really sat down yet, you know, to really put in the time to learn it, but it looks really nice. But I'm just more comfortable working in Substance for now. So I'll go ahead and get a mouth color as well. Bless me. Right. Find where their mouth is at. That's something. Here it is. And that's also the thing to think about too, is when you're, you know, working on this stuff, is if you split out your UVs in smart ways, it'll be a lot easier to select certain things. So, you know, knowing that I want to change the mouth color, and, you know, just creating a UV where I can make that super easy for myself. Anything in the pipeline that's going to help you with that will be a much more efficient way to do it. I'm all about saving time, you know, because in the industry you don't always get, you know, a million months or something to work on a project. So the key to, you know, getting stuff done is always about being choiceful with what you can and can't accomplish, and part of that is just having a more efficient and easier pipeline to work within. Right? Our brain loves predictability. So our brain loves, if we have a routine or we have a plan or something that we have to kind of like think less about, our brain loves that. And so it makes it a lot easier to, you know, that's why we create pipelines, and so that way our brain can kind of turn off and focus on all the cool stuff, such as, you know, making cool art and whatnot, instead of having to sit here and worry about making and thinking too hard about pipelines and things. So the technical is always going to be there, but the technical is always about also helping your creativity come out. So the better you get technical, the more you get to think about just art, which is pretty nice. I think it's over here. Cool. So now you can see I kind of got that broken down. And then one thing that I could maybe do, you know, later on, I'm just kind of thinking outside the box, is maybe there's little gold flakes or something that kind of sparse or break this up or something like that, right? And it's okay to go ahead and like go and sketch on stuff like this if you want to. See if that helps you break up any of that. I'd probably put it on like a separate layer or mask or something like that, but no, let's do that too. Synth, how's it going? My buddy Synth. Too many streams have passed without you. It makes me sad. I don't like it. Stay. Stay and hang out with us. We're making dragons. Dragon Synth. Here be dragons. So I have kind of like this like purpley color, but I'll go ahead and grab that and then kind of find like the darker, maybe more saturated. I probably ended up with the same exact color, which is probably really funny. But one thing I could do now is maybe add a height to it. So adding a height to this and then going in and this is why I don't bother sometimes with making it high res, is because I can actually add height after the fact, if it lets me. Come on now. I'm not crazy. Why won't it let me do some things? Get back. Okay. There it is. Why I want to do it in a folder? That's weird. It should do it in that folder. Where did the folder go? I'm just gonna put it up at the top and see if it's being weird again. Oh, I added. That's why. I'm stupid. There's a mask on it. Okay, let's try again. There it is. I was being silly. Oh, your band plays? Why don't you tell him? Be like, I can't play that day. You gotta pick a different day. My friend needs me. But that's awesome because you've played a few shows. That sounds super fun. That's awesome. I think before you told me what instrument you play, and I remember being very surprised because I don't think it was like a normal instrument. That's what I remember. And I have a horrible memory, so I'm very sorry that I don't exactly remember. But I remember it being weird. Am I right? That it was a weird one? I feel like that's what I remember. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy. But you can see here how we can add now height to our character. No high poly required. Obviously there's some stuff that looks better if you do like a high poly or something like that, but for what this game is going to be, because remember, it's an isometric, which means it's going to be about here. So even if I want to, I could probably paint these scales in areas that actually make more sense for, you know, where they'll be seen, right? It's just kind of like a good little walkout. And then I can go in and detail more. Synthesizer. Well, yeah. Oh, I should have known because your name is Quicksynth. I'm so sorry. That got past me, man. Got past me. That's right. I do remember it was a slightly weirder one. But that's awesome. That's so fun. I love it. I play guitar. Not very well. But I can play, you know. I can play simple little songs, which are fun. I think it's always really important, actually, to have some sort of other, you know, creative hobby or something else that you do that you really enjoy doing. That isn't always art, because I feel like you learn a lot from just other crafts and other hobbies, or having other things that your time is sometimes filled up with. I feel like that can be very valuable as an artist. Let's play a show? Oh no. You'd have to make a song that's the simplest guitar chords, and then I could do it. Then I'll play with you. I'm trying to remember what was the last song I was trying to learn. There's this song called Holy Smokes by Ann Bates that I really like, that I think is very funny, and it's very fun to sing. So I was trying to learn how to play that on the guitar. I try to learn like a certain finger style. That's kind of what I want to get good at, is doing like cool, like acoustic finger style kind of playing. I've always found that kind of playing like really fun or interesting. It's very challenging. So I like that stuff. Yeah, I haven't picked up the guitar in a hot minute though. I'll have to run a little refresher on it before we go play a show. But you know, I'll give it my best. I will give it my all. You know what I've been wanting to do also? This just reminded me of like fun hobbies. Is I need to go buy a Gundam. I need to go get a Gundam. Build a Gundam again. I haven't built a Gundam in a long time. I want to get a big one. I've never gotten a big one before. I want to get those ones that take you like months to complete. You know? That sounds fun. Because there's nothing more satisfying than putting Gundam together. Because sometimes what I love about Gundams is they'll put in parts that in the end you never see. But what matters is you know it's there because you built it. And I think that's so special. I love that. I love that so much. Because then you know it's one of those things where like the hobby or the art of it is getting to build it, you know? It's so much cooler than just like buying a figure. Get like experience and memories from it. It's very fun. So if you've never built a Gundam, go build Gundams. I have this like little frill detail in my painting, but maybe I will just make it a frill. I don't know. I think that would work. Finger picking? Yeah, it's like the way you strum by using your thumb and your first 3 fingers, I think. I forget what they call it. It's some sort of... They call it something. It's some sort of way of picking with your fingers. It's like finger picking style. It's very similar to like how you would kind of pick at a banjo, but I don't really know the name for it. Does that disappear? That's interesting. Why does that disappear? Oh, because it's in that folder. I'm silly. Casino, hello. You think I know it? Yeah. I can't remember the name for the life of me, but that's what it is. It's very fun. I like it a lot. Because if you learn the basics of that, then you can kind of take any song and kind of finger pick that way or play it that way. Because it's just about learning like patterns with your hand. And it's really fun. I was having a lot of fun learning it. I just have to get back onto it. Too many things to do. But yes, building Gundams was also something that's very fun. I used to build model kits all the time. I used to buy car model kits when I was a kid, or airplane model kits, and build those. And yeah, it's just a good time. I think having something that when you don't feel like working on, you know, your art or something, it's just nice to have something else to kind of do that's still creative and still kind of fun, or like problem solving, but you know, just put your brain into like a different mindset. I think it's cool. I'm now painting it in a 2D view because that's a lot easier. I got distracted talking, but okay, Sato, I am painting in Substance Painter. That's the software that I'm using right now. So yeah, I'm hand painting the dragon, which is nice. I like hand painting stuff. I don't have a lot of practice in it, but if you know how to the fundamentals of like painting, or you know, I texture a lot of stuff realistically, and there's a lot of fundamentally similar things that come with that. But you just get to be slightly more creative. Or it's a different type of problem solving. I don't want to say that it's less creative. I find it just more fun in general, but that's to each their own. There's plenty of things about real, like texturing real skin and stuff like that I do really enjoy. But I do a lot of that stuff for work, so this is my way of winding down and doing something different. Again, if you keep it interesting and you like play with different mediums, or you know, just keep it fun for yourself. You know, art really can't get that boring. It's kind of hard to make art boring when there's so many things to do. So let's think about figuring some scales here. And this is all kind of placeholdery. Again, they're all on mass and layers, so if I wanted to get rid of it at any given time, I can just totally dump it and say, I don't like it, and you know, kind of start over or something. And there's things I would have done differently. So because he has 3 heads, for example, I should have UV'd these guys the same way I made the middle one, because you can see even though symmetry isn't on, it's in symmetry because the UV is the same. So whether I have symmetry on or not, these also share the same UVs. But it's really easy. I could fix that later, though. I could just go into the texture maps later and just grab that section and flip it over to the other side to make it symmetrical if I wanted to. Or I could keep it, you know, not symmetrical. It's hand painted, so it doesn't technically have to be even. That's totally fine too. But it just kind of mitigates a lot work. Synth says that you recently started a new studio this week and had to get used to driving in traffic again. No work from home for you? That's a shame. How long's your commute? Commutes would kill. I used to do a commute where I would get up at 4:30 in the morning to leave at 5 to get to work at 6, and then I would go to the gym nearby and I would work out until about 7, and then I would shower, and then I would start my work day at around 8 or so, and then I would work until 5, and then traffic was really bad, so then I would leave and I would go to a coffee shop and I would sit and draw until traffic died down, which was till about 7 or so, and then I'd go home, get home around 8. I would eat dinner, hang out for like 30 minutes, and I'd go to bed at like 9:30, and then I'd start my day all over again. Yeah, about 45 minutes with traffic. That sounds about right. If I didn't leave at the right times on my schedule, it would be 2 hours until I got home. It was ridiculous. But I owe LA traffic kind of how I got good at drawing, because I would go to a cafe and just sit and draw. You know, there wasn't much else to do there, so yeah, got pretty good at drawing because of that. So thanks, LA traffic, I guess. So now what I'll do is I'll start adding some gradients and stuff like that into the character, just like I did with God, you could barely tell I got a writer. What's happening? Okay. I'm not crazy. So I can use now a big soft brush. This is where it's easier to go into like base color now, and now you can see kind of work from home on Mondays and Fridays. That's not too bad, actually. Working a 3-day week, and then when you work Mondays and Fridays from home, I feel like you get a closer feeling to like a 4-day work weekend, which is kind of nice. Mondays to work from home are really nice because Mondays usually have the worst traffic. Friday depends on if people are going out that night, but so again, just adding gradients. Gradients can help a lot. And then obviously I'll change the color of the scales and stuff too, depending on where they sit on that gradient. But it's all about slowly building stuff up at first. And then maybe his ears are. I do need to remember to save. Although ZBrush doesn't. Ooh, is that inverted? Ooh, that normal. Oh yeah, that's a flipped normal, I think. That looks flipped. Am I crazy or is that one? Oh, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's not. Oh no. Ashley could just be going crazy, guys. Ooh, a lunch card? That's awesome. I'm jealous. I have to make my own lunch if I want it to be cheap. Okay, Satos is looking really cool. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. That's so nice. Yeah, it's just about adding. Oh, I forgot the inside fins. Way to go, man. Failed you guys. Where's webbing? That's right there. Go. Cool. It's so funny with the light on, the gradient doesn't look as intense, right? But that's why it's actually more important to look at kind of that to get a better read on things. The light will kind of lie to you. I should also probably make sure that I'm choosing that I have a light that is like kind of neutral soft light with no color. So, you know, one of these. Because if you pick something, you know, for example, if I pick this like cave one or something, sometimes your stuff will turn like more green or more blue than you intended to turn into. So it's good to pick something that has, that's actually a little better because it's kind of bright everywhere. Be able to see what you're doing. So again, I'll start with adding, so I got, you know, light gradient, dark gradient on the base, and then I can go now into like the webbing, for example, and I can do the same thing. So I can duplicate this, make it darker. And then I always make it dark, add a black mask, and then paint that gradient in. This will only show up wherever there's webbing because of the mask that I set in place in the beginning. So it's one of those things where it's kind of annoying at first to do all that setup. Why is this chugging all of a sudden? I'm gonna save it. You can see it's there. Why isn't it painting? Is it just not strong enough? Does it just really not like me? That's weird. I don't know, it's doing weird things now. Why does it work down there but not up here? There might be like a flip normal. Yeah. There's something funky going on with my... Oh, yeah, I think it is flipped. You can kind of see the geometry being weird. It doesn't look like it's flipped when the material's on it, but I actually think my normals are flipped. I'll have to correct that later. It's okay, it's not the end of the world, but that's what's going on there. It's like, why is this painting so weird? Because remember I was having all that trouble selecting stuff? Yeah, it's like losing its mind now. Alright, I'll leave you alone. Just turn that off for now. Anyway, sorry guys. Make sure your normals are flipped. Oh, Synth says, you're still playing the model of my three-eyed tiger design. I have a former coworker who wants to rig it when I'm done. He works on the Spyro games? That's so awesome. I love Spyro. Why do you think I draw purple dragons? Purple dragons are my favorite. Purple dragons are the best. The purple dragon, though, is the best. I love Spyro. That was one of, like, not my first game, but it was just such a childhood game. It's like a core memory for me. I love those games. But I'm super excited to see how you interpret that design. What's actually funny is, I think I told you this, I don't remember, but that three-eyed tiger actually started as a 3D sculpt, and then I painted more on top of it and everything. So I'm excited to see how you fully interpret it. I would love to see it moving and rigged like a little wriggly dragon caterpillar with its little floating hands. That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool. Alright, so now I can open up these scales. I can delete this mask. I don't need this thing. Remove. Get rid of the mask. I don't know why I always, every time, struggle to find remove mask. I don't know. Just trying to look. I'm looking at the head right now to pick a good scale color because it's so much brighter than. I don't want to go super saturated, but that might work. And again, this is also just using like the round brush. It's not, I'm not doing anything special here. Oh yeah, message me some questions. By all means, yes. You can always message me on Instagram. And if you message me on Instagram and you want to show me stuff, I can also later, I could give you my Discord or something like that. It's always easier to show images through that, so. I'm more than happy to help people with art, especially if you're going to do one of mine. That sounds awesome. There's some angry. I think those are too. I think the scales are actually too many. I don't really like the pattern that it makes, but especially because it's a top down, I feel like if I was to do this, I would have to do something where it kind of does this number or something. Something like that. Want to see the three-headed dragon animate? I will. It will eventually be animated because it'll go in game. It's just a matter of when. I have a lot of characters that I'm gonna have to rig and animate. I think his head got too pink actually. And see, this is why I like working in mask, because if I feel like a part of something isn't working or isn't feeling right, it's really easy to go back and go, oh, well, I can just change the color. If I wanted to later on, my goal would be if someone was like, oh, hey, can you just make them green? I'd be like, yeah, that's easy. I can make them green. Greeny bee. And again, I'm just going in and adding some gradients to each of these sections before you start kind of adding more specific detailing. So like for underneath, because one, you don't really see it, but two, if his underbelly is going to be a little darker, right? And then maybe, so it's all about points of interest, right? If I want the shiniest bits and the more contrasty bits to be, probably along the midline of his neck, then maybe I'll add a gradient below his head here to kind of also signify that there's like shadow. And then maybe I could put a bit of shadow information, sort of. I don't want to go crazy with shadow information because my game isn't completely just, hand painted. There's real lighting and stuff in it. But, adding stuff like that could kind of help sell some of that like ambient occlusion that you would normally get. And that just helps kind of, again, moves your eye through the character. And you'll never see the underside, so I probably won't bother texturing that part. Okay, mouth, I can copy that. Maybe add like a darker part. And the darker part's going to be maybe his tongue, his tongues. And then I'll paint like little wet spots and things like that. And I just realized that I should probably give him some teeth at some point. Oops. Or maybe he doesn't have teeth. Maybe he's just like weird bird dragon, But I do see on my reference a lot of them have teeth, so I'll probably give him some teeth later. Oh yeah, the old Simbemi with the three-headed Cerberus. That thing was awesome. So you can see how gradients make a lot of stuff pop. If I was to turn off all those gradients again, it would be kind of boring. But it does help because it just breaks up a lot of the color that we're going for here. And now I could probably focus in on like the first head here and see if we can get something kind of more fun and interesting. There is a thing you can do too where above all of this, well, maybe not above all of it, we'll see what happens. But that's what's helpful about some of these masks. So I can actually go and select from my projects. This does that. I don't know why. If I look at like the curvature map, for example, you can see that the curvature map will actually add highlights and details, like especially along something like the scales on his belly and stuff. It actually adds a lot of like what I would normally want to hand paint. So one of those things that you can do is you can kind of take a map like this and you can throw levels on it to kind of crunch. Look at just purely the color here. There you go. Yeah, so you could crunch this a lot to kind of just get the main curves of something. And even though, and this is just purely baked off of this model, which is kind of cool. But if you had like a higher res bake, this is a really nice technique to be able to get certain details kind of quicker. You end up with kind of interesting accidents, such as something like that, which you can always paint out later and stuff like that. But yeah, for something like working on the face, that might be a go-to. But it's a really good one, actually, for throwing down into the scales here. And then if we just do like an not an overlay, screen, right, you'll see that you get actually a ridge. And if I go into the levels and I adjust more of like what this could be, you know, you'll get different results out of it. Or I could just tone it down. You know, now I could take it and lower the opacity. And now you can start to see that I'll get something there. And that I can put another layer on and start like painting on top of it and getting some like happy accidents there. That's just an example of things. But you can do the same with like the ambient occlusion, for example. So if I show the ambient occlusion map, you'll see that it does something kind of like that, which can kind of give you a first, you know, if you look at these ambient occlusion down here and stuff like that, it can give you a way to break up. If I put this to multiply, you'll see, and obviously for the webbing it doesn't work because it baked weird. But if I tone that down and ignore and I can paint out where it hits, you know, in this area, you'll actually get a lot of really nice base starting points for, like in between the toes, you can see it working really well, right, to add some definition to some stuff, which is pretty cool. So once you have something like that, then, you know, I can add a white mask, or not a white mask, and then I can go in here. Find my soft brush here somewhere. Oh, it's gonna be dumb because, you know, inverted normals or whatever. So I'm just gonna hit 4 actually, and I'm just gonna grab that whole object and stop it until I can invert the normals. It's just gonna have to be a dumb thing, but I'm not gonna sit here and do that with you guys, obviously. But yeah, you can kind of see the effect that we get there. I'm pretty sure this one is inverted at this point too. I'm pretty confident that I messed up these ears because they're painting all weird. But I'll focus on the middle. You can see the middle here and how that ambient occlusion kind of looks. And it's a really nice kind of like jumping off point for then taking, and we can add just like a paint layer. Or not a paint layer. I said a paint layer, but I meant also a fill layer. So I can take you know, another one. And I can go ahead and grab and color pick. Oh, speaking of 3, rest in peace E3. Since says, is E3 not happening anymore? Is that something that got wiped out? I've been living in a bubble and apparently don't know. But now I'm going to go ahead and try to find something a little more painterly. That feels kind of painterly. And now I can start painting in some areas. I kind of want one that's just around though. Oh, this one? This one. I was trying to find the one that I usually use, and I think it's one of these ones. Maybe find where his nose would be. Oh, their mouths are inverted too. How fun. I was so good at double checking this model, you guys. And I'm a big fan of, whoops, wrong button. Wrong button again. I'm so good at that. Because C and X are right next to each other. I'll kind of like paint more than I need, and then I'll kind of hit the inverse of it, and then I'm always kind of a person that likes to paint out stuff as well. So, you know, and because it's masked, I could easily paint around all the little scales, and then on the scales layer, I can paint these to look like they're beveled, you know, upwards, and give them like a little shine or anything like that. Helps it stick out a bit more. And then you can stay on a place like the head for a while, you know? So now I'll add another black mask. And then instead of it being the dark color, I'll go ahead and color pick this again, and I'll make it the brighter color. Now you can do something where instead of just picking like a brighter color, oh, so they have officially shut down. Let me see. But let's say, you know, if you don't want to pick like a specific color, what you can do is set this to something like screen, right? And then instead of this like pinkish color, you would pick kind of something more neutral. I'm gonna put this down, the texture down a little bit, so that way hopefully it runs a little faster. You know, or you could do, I think maybe overlay. Nope, not overlay. Color dodge, or maybe linear dodge. Linear dodge could work. But if you pick the right color, for example, you can kind of adjust this just like you can in Photoshop. So now I could add like a, you know, again, I always go heavy and then I'll cut back using I'll cut back a lot depending on what it is, as you can see. But I think it's important to add areas of like thick and thin, so that way they're not just, you know, one straight thing. And maybe it can give the hint of like scales or something. Right, so I could draw, you know, this really harsh, but again, I'm not going to keep all of it. For the most part, I'll tone this back, right? I'll probably tone this all the way back a little bit too. But I like starting with something that I can cut away from because it allows me to make sure that there's like thick and thin edges, and it's easier to have that one brush thickness, and it's just easier to carve away than it is to try to be like super exact. So for example, yeah, I don't have to worry about changing line thickness. I can just carve a line and then cut away. And obviously a lot of what will help too is finding like the right color. So that color wasn't feeling like the right one. But maybe something more along the lines of that. And I like putting stuff at like kind of a lower stroke opacity a little bit. So that way I can kind of blend a little easier and create little highlights and stuff like that. Or, you know, you can kind of do something where you build slow, and then when you make this a little smaller, so you'll get a little bit more of a highlight, for example. And then I can cut it back. In different shapes and sizes, and make sure that I'm thinning out my edges. And now you have kind of like a nostril that pops out. And this is all just base color. Also, I'm not looking at it from a material with like light on standpoint. Just purely looking at base color. And this might be too harsh, but that's what's okay, is I can always choose, go to linear dodge, and I can choose how high and how intense it is. So, in reality, maybe I'll end up saving it out to something that's more like 50%, right? But I try to work I like Substance because it allows me to create that kind of editability. But you can see kind of what one head would look like compared to, where we were with the other heads. Yeah, that's how you can kind of start to get that painted look. And you can just zone out. You can just zone out and keep painting. So for something like, I can go and touch the scales here. And again, I can pick a color that's getting brighter. And then I'll add, again, a black mask. And for this one, I'll make sure that it's actually pretty strong because I want to create kind of like a bevel effect. And again, this might be the wrong color to start out with, but it's okay. Just trying to get something in there to start is good. Getting the right color is really important because a lot of it is it's a lot about value, but then a lot of it too is getting the right temperature in your color changes. Because right now this just kind of feels like it doesn't feel like a brighter color or a slightly lighter color with the purple that's underneath it. It just kind of feels like a more random color. And that's mainly due not to value in this case, but to temperature. Right, so if I go in here now and I'll also get rid of the height for this one. But if I just change the temperature of this, meaning if I desaturate it more or if I saturate it more, you can see that that changes drastically. I'm not changing the value. The value isn't going up and down. It's just how more saturated or desaturated it is. And you can see the difference now that it actually feels a little bit closer to the color that we were trying to achieve. And now with this, what I could do is I could go on a linear dodge, add black mask again. And I would probably turn off, well, I have to have symmetry actually for this, but now I can go and add edges along this. And again, I'll do one solid line, but then you'll see later I'll go in and add that width variation and edging. Stephen Guardo, hello, just got here. Hello. Oh, synthesizing. Did you have a separate name? Not yet, but you are more than welcome to try to give him a name. That would be very fun. Oh, I think I missed that one. That's okay. But hello, just got here. And if you did just get here, welcome. This is Archetype. I am Ashley. I'm a senior character artist in the gaming industry, and I'm here every Wednesday streaming making characters. And this is a personal project of mine. where we're kind of doing a low poly, hand-painted game style. And we're sculpting a 3-headed dragon. Well, we finished sculpting it, but now it's in the painting phases. So welcome. Sit back and relax and just enjoy the painting show. But now you can see that I added like a little edging and stuff, right? And then to add to that, again, I can duplicate this. Add a black mask to that guy, and then maybe make it darker. And then where there's like a corner or something, you can add a little bit of a darker color to give the bevel effect. And I'm adding it in the corner because, again, this is sculpting symmetrically, so you know that might help. Or you can add a little bit of shadow where it meets his skin, something like that. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you know, something like that could be cool. You can see from how the top it actually looks like it's beveled, right? But it's actually not. When we, you know, go to the side, that illusion gets kind of broken. But if the character is an isometric character from a view that's kind of like that, that reads pretty well as scales that kind of like pop out on the head. To the point where maybe, you know, in the actual like lighting and material, maybe I wouldn't need the like original height. You can see that I actually turn it off and you can barely tell that it's on because I'm basing my painting off of raising it up and making it feel like a height. But you can't really tell the section that I painted on. And that's kind of the point, right? So we're getting 3D information from just painting and not actually 3D information from what we initially made in our model, which was, you know, just this like low poly this guy, right? So this very like low poly wireframe. But there's so much that you can do and get away with in texture, and you can add so much more of you know, like form information. Like if you look at the subtle color shift that I added to like his cheekbone and stuff in comparison to the other two heads, it makes like a really big difference, especially when you're looking at something from, you know, about yay far away. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's cool. So for this guy, I'm going to put it back to normal for a second. So you can see that it's just black and white. So one thing we can do is we can kind of adjust the colors here. And I know it's a little triangulated, a little weird, which actually is kind of weird because I didn't export this triangulated. So many things. Anyway, we'll keep going though. But if I do something like this per se, Steven's saying, I wish I could do something like that in Maya. I'm only used to creating my characters using polygons and topology. You only own Maya? Well, you realize that owning Maya is the most expensive program. In fact, if you don't own Maya, you could own ZBrush, Blender, and Substance, and probably Photoshop for less amount of money. Isn't that crazy? Maya is so expensive. Maya drives me nuts. So I understand the little tear face. I'm right there with you. This is why I switched to Blender, because I was like, man, Blender's free and it's so much nicer. But yeah, I mean, low poly modeling is the key to, you know, making this kind of stuff. And low poly modeling is actually the secret to even high poly modeling. Because if you're good at making a shape with the fewest amount of topology, it's really easy to keep adding geo and make it more high res. So Synth is also asking, so my process for game characters, do I usually paint before baking mesh maps, or does it vary depending on the style of character you're working on? In this case, for every character I make, you'll always bake meshes out first, because even if you're using just the low poly like I am now, you still need to bake a map, so that way something like Substance creates generators and creates a lot of things based off of these maps. I'm not using any generator at the moment because it's just kind of hand painting. But those generators, such as this curvature map that I am about to use, only comes once you bake the map out. And that's whether you're just using low poly or you're baking your high res into your low res, texture maps. So I always bake first, but then the pipeline varies greatly depending on, what am I trying to achieve, whether in, like what the style is. So yeah. Okay, so it says yes, there's a small difference between Blender. Price-wise, there's a little bit of price difference between those two programs. Yeah, I use Maya for work. I like Maya. Maya has a lot of really strong programs and power within it, but it's just so hard to convince myself to pay that much. As you can see, I'm actually using a gradient map, just kind of like it's the same as in Photoshop. I can use that curvature map, so instead of it turning into like a black and white and dulling out my colors, I can actually change it into more of the colors that I'm looking to use, right? And then I can generate something really cool from that. Then I can paint on top of that, which is cool. Or then it's easier to go and say like overlay or use a screen and make it bright and lower it, and then you can paint on top of that or something. But you can see that just normal actually gets you pretty far. And then if I wanted to, I could just turn down how strong it is by like half, and then I could go ahead and start painting on top of that. So I really like using that gradient map color to colorize stuff. It's really helpful to colorize stuff like ambient occlusion, so then you can color it more like red or purple. So that way when you throw it on a multiply, such as this ambient occlusion, this is just black right now. But if I go ahead and colorize that gradient into be like a purple, it'll actually blend and look a lot better, because it'll keep the saturation of your character. So I usually like kind of going that route. And now in fact I can actually overlay that gradient instead. And I think it's a little too orange. So you can change how the color position to try to kind of adjust. And I know it's a little triangulated, but I actually, because my style is low poly, I don't hate it. I still need to kind of blend it out. But you could do something like take that and add another filter and just add a blur filter to it. So I could blur that out a bit more if I wanted to, but there's so much stuff that you could do in this program. But I'm still going to tone it down quite a bit because there's a lot of stuff that I want to add to like the thing itself. So I'll go ahead and add another one. I'll make this one maybe more saturated. Not sure yet. I don't know why my color picker's hating me right now. Anytime I go into the color picker, it seems to lag a lot. Not sure why. And then what I'll do is oh, this is a multiply. That's fine. Since my friend told me that he's paying like $300 for a year for my indie version, I didn't even know it was an option. Yeah, there is like a cheaper option. It's still not worth it to me. But my work pays for mine, so it's fine. I don't have to buy my own Maya. Oh, that's why. I'm so dumb. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and try to find like kind of a softish brush. Maybe like that one. Nope, too sporadic. How about just a normal cotton? Sure. I think that's a good one. This is fine. There we go. So I'm gonna add a gradient now to each scale. I think someone else asked the question, which was, Steven asked, is that dragon animation ready, excluding the color shaders you're working on? Yeah, so he's low poly, where I can now, I haven't rigged him yet, but I will rig him, and so then I can rig him and get him in game and do all that good jazz. So yeah, the goal is a game ready model by the end of it. So he's, UV'd, and now I'm just working on texturing. I won't share that part of the process unless people, comment enough being like, show me the rig and do all the things, but it's not the most exciting thing to watch as far as game dev goes. But I figured I'd take a break from just sculpting and show you guys how I usually paint stuff, which I hope you guys are enjoying. This is actually the first, if you guys are joining in for the first time, this is the first time I've been in Substance ever in my life. No, first time I've been in Substance on the stream. So if you guys are liking and enjoying, this content, then please let me know so I can continue to make and do stuff that makes you guys happy. Because that's all I'm here for. I'm just here to make you guys happy. So you can see now I'm cutting back that gradient into something much more subtle. So again, I like to go above and past what I usually need, and then I'll dial it back in because it allows me to create better, I don't know, I just feel like I have better edge control. When I do it that way. But to each their own. Steven says, show please. I have a bunch of character models without a rig. Have you ever, you have Maya, have you ever used like an auto rigger? I tend to go for, there's one in Maya that's really good. That's not Mixamo. What's it called? Oh, I'm blanking on the name of it because I want to say Auto Rigger Pro, but I think that's the Blender one. There's one that I have for Maya that's really good though. That you can make like 3-headed dragons and stuff at it, because basically you just make like kind of a proxy rig. You just tell it where the joints go, and then from there you can kind of, it'll populate and make controls and stuff for you. It's really important to learn how to do it yourself for sure, but no one's got time to do that. Even riggers use rigging options. Because we just don't have time for it, you know. But that is something to look into, is like an auto rigger. And then I also welcomed the boundary here, so I'm going to just carve that back as well. Make sure that flows a little higher. There we go. Now you can see it. It's popping. But yeah, in Blender I use, I mean, for normal characters, you know, something like Mixamo works really well. The only thing I don't like about Mix, you get all these cool animations, but the problem is, if you want to edit that rig at all, you kind of can't, because if you adjust any of the bones or joints in the rig, then the animations won't read, so then you lose your animation anyway. So something like Auto Rigger Pro, where it's a more customizable rig, suited for more custom characters rather than just like, you know, if you're doing like a walking around kind of game, then it's fine. But if you're, you know, building three-headed dragons, for example, Mixmo's not gonna care about that. So I'll probably do. Man, I don't know why it's so slow on the color picker. I wish I knew. It's a lot of layers, but it's not that crazy. But I'll go ahead and do a multiply. I'll start figuring out where I want to put like little shipping. You can see how things start really bad at first, and then over time they get cooler looking. Be patient with yourself when you're hand painting stuff. I used to be really, I mean, I still kind of am. I still struggle with it. I used to be really, really impatient with this kind of work, but it's really important to give yourself. Oh, I like that contrast actually. It does kind of. It really makes it pop. Maybe I will add that to all the bottom layers. But yeah, it's very important to be patient with this kind of stuff. You'll only get good results if you're patient with yourself. Oh. I do like how harsh like that contrast is. It's kind of fun. And again, just carving to get sharper corners, because you can see how rounded also, like just leaving it as a brush is. And I'm also trying to create more interesting angles. As they say, trust the process. Yes. We love this content. We love to see the rig. All right. Okay. Gnomon will love that. They've already told me, they've been like, you know, rigging's boring, don't show it. And then everyone's like, we demand rigging. You guys are going to see me struggle. It's going to be so fun. I mean, I'm all here for whatever you guys, you know, that's part of why I started actually doing I want to do more of my personal project for you guys on the stream. Not because, I mean, yes, I killed two birds with one stone. That's always a really nice little plus. But in reality, you know, if you guys want to be game devs or you guys want to be artists in the industry, you know, I think it's important to show that whole process. And if you don't know where to start, I mean, watching somebody else kind of go through it can be really helpful. You know, I'm not a professional rigger by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I'm not a professional animator, but you know, I've worked through the pipeline enough times where I've rigged my own characters and I've animated my own characters before. I try to do it as often as possible because I think it's important to have that kind of toolkit in your belt, you know? Because then also when you get in the industry and you're working with animators and you're working with riggers, you kind of understand their job a bit better, which means you can make better character art. You can be more valuable as an artist. You know, they're never going to ask you to do his job, but if you understand it, that's a really big plus in this industry. I kind of don't mind how scribbly I'm being because it's kind of the style and vibe anyway. Well, that was a little messy, but I don't mind. And no one cares about that. It's way up there. There you go. And then we have black mask. And I could do probably linear dodge this time. And here we go. We're going to try to color pick again. I don't know why it's so slow. It's so weird. Does it lag on the stream when I bring up color picker? Can anybody tell me that? It doesn't? It's just my computer lagging? That's so weird. There we go. So now we have something really nice and bright. And I can add little highlighting details. Yep, that way you understand why someone in the pipeline has an issue. Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. The more valuable you are, you know, in knowing all that stuff, like, it's so helpful when you're, you know, as a senior character artist, and a lot of times a senior character artist will take a lot of lead roles at like a smaller studio. It's really important for me to know what comes before me and what comes after me in the pipeline, you know? And the more you can do that, yeah, just the more valuable of a team member you are. Because at the end of the day, a game is a collaborative, you know? Unless you're working on it all by your little lonesome, which is also fine. But, you know, in the industry, you'll be working with a team of really awesome people. So it's important to know what their jobs are and how you can make their lives easier. Okay, so it says, I honestly haven't seen any streamer artists showing how to rig, so something different, you say, is a plus to at least have an idea of how to do it. Yeah, I think that could be something kind of cool. I mean, I'll use something like an auto rigger just to run through the basics of what most people would use, you know, something like in Blender. Which is like fairly straightforward. When we were at Gnomon, and I was taking, you know, my college classes there and stuff, we had to learn how to rig completely from scratch, which some of it I remember, how to like create your own, you know, nodes and all these crazy things and whatnot. But, you know, if you know how to utilize a tool and use it to your advantage, then that's all you really need. Adding just like little highlights around the cracks and stuff just to make it pop a little bit. I'm not really sure if it's too much. I don't think so. I mean, from far away, it makes it really, you can see the kind of nice contrast that you get from it. So because this character, again, you'll be viewing him from something like that, probably. then I think something like this is fine. Artistic Rendezvous said, I haven't tried character texturing and painting. Good to see this. This is great. Yeah, character texturing and paint are super fun. I mean, you can use something like Blender and stuff as well. I just find that, you know, because you can also sculpt in Blender, and I love Blender for lots of different things, but sculpting in it, I'm like, oh, that's a hard one for me, because I always kind of relate it to, you know, you're a professional race car driver, and you're used to like that Formula One, super souped up, beautiful, you know, racing machine, and then you kind of get into like, I don't know, like a street racing car, like a, you know, like a Porsche 911 or something that's like street legal, you know. Blender's the street legal good. It's a good car. It's a good racing machine, but it's not, you know, your Formula Indy 500, which is ZBrush. So that's kind of how I relate it. You know, it's kind of. But if you've never raced in the Indy 500, you don't know what a Formula One car feels like, Blender will probably be just fine for you, right? Plenty of horsepower there. So that's usually kind of how I relate it. And it's the same thing with like texturing. Like you can texture in Blender, but I learned how to use Mari. I learned how to use Substance Painter, use some Substance Designer and things like that. And once you step foot into that indie world, that Indy 500 of programs, it's kind of hard to step backwards into things. That being said, Blender's modeling and rendering, and its rigging and animating is pretty good, considering that I don't, you know, Blender's kind of Maya's kind of inaccessible for a lot of artists, especially beginning artists, because it's so expensive. You can get student versions or slightly cheaper versions, but you know, it's a cost. And if you're not sure what you want to do in this industry, it's one of those things where it's like, man, do I really want to pay $200, you know, for something that I end up might not even liking? And that's where Blender's is the master. It is the sports race car, because it's free and it does so much of the pipeline all by its little self, which is really cool. So even if you don't know how to composite, you can learn how to composite in Blender. You can learn about cameras, you can learn about texturing, you can learn about rigging, you can learn about character modeling or sculpting. Like you get to do the whole thing. So I constantly say that Blender is a really wonderful piece of machinery and program in order to pick, you know, what you want to do. Cool. And then I think I need to add. I have that guy. I wonder. Kind of wonder if I can get away with this. I think I could. I think I can. Actually, I take it back. I want to. If I merge it down later, I could, but I'm actually going to duplicate this guy. Because I want to add like some striations to. Yeah. Just try to see how that feels, like just to give it a bit more texture or something. Something like that. I'm not really sure. Kuya, hello. Oh my god, the peaches! Every single time I see your adorable peach stickers, I keep forgetting that I need to make my own. Not my own peach stickers, you know, I'm gonna do dinosaurs or something, but still. It's wonderful to see you, though. Seems asking, any idea what makes someone a senior character artist or a junior? Additionally, how to qualify to be one. I did say I would bake them. I'm sorry. I'm going to. I swear. I'll keep my promises. Yeah, so a junior artist tends to be someone with less experience in the industry. Either that or they have kind of no experience, like professional experience, like a junior or associate. You'll see it be associate sometimes as well. And so that's really common. And so a junior artist is just someone who has not as much experience and they can't really take on like a leadership role. They kind of need more guidance in learning the pipeline, like the basic pipeline, not just from a studio sense. Because every studio has a slightly different pipeline, but you know, that's kind of not what we're talking about when we talk about these things. And so yeah, it's really more about your level of experience as being a character artist. So a senior takes on more responsibility and usually is the one who oversees more cross-disciplinary things with the character. So the junior artist might be kind of in charge of also maybe a smaller asset besides a full character as well, just to make sure that you know the pipeline and can follow, you know, guidance and instruction well and things like that. And the senior character artist can be one that kind of oversees those things. And then there's also, you know, a lead character artist who oversees all the seniors and the juniors. And then there's also a principal character artist that it depends on where you go in the industry. They kind of sometimes mean or use these terminologies in different ways. But usually a principal is someone that sets the standard of the character art, but doesn't usually lead the team. So they're kind of like the most experienced character artists, but they're not in like a lead position. They just make basically awesome shit. They just make badass stuff. That's that's their job. Their job is to just make the cool stuff. And usually principals can sometimes be more technical because they're more about setting the standard of art. Whereas a lead character artist is more about managing other artists. But yeah, junior artist tends to be the one with the least amount of experience, just in the industry in general. So I hope that was a nice little breakdown for you. You friendly game dev. Ooh, I like your name. Said this is a fun dragon. I've just developed a love for texture painting. Awesome. I love texture painting. Texturing's like, so sculpting, awesome. Low poly and UVing, boo. Texturing, yay! Right? Like, texturing's awesome. But you have to do the low poly and do the baking in order to get to this super juicy fun part, which is, you know, whether you're painting realistic stuff or hand painting, you know, there's always kind of a pros and cons to it. I got used, I mean, I've been doing it for so long now. I've been in the industry for about 8 years or so. I've been studying it for over 11. That, you know, you kind of develop a love-hate for the low poly UVing. UVing's not that bad anymore. UVing's more like a fun little puzzle. If you treat it like a fun little puzzle that you get to solve, then it's fine. Put on your favorite music, retop your heart out. It all goes by in a blink of an eye. And then soon you're in, you know, texturing fantasy land, and it's great. Where everyone's happy. Happy little brushstrokes. Happy little cracks on big three-headed dragons. If I just had the Bob Ross vibe, maybe I'd get more people following me. Happy little snowflakes and mountains. But yeah, trust the process. But yeah, I think those lines are helping a lot. It just felt, as you can see, it feels a little too flat and not very textured. I always keep meaning to take almost every character that I've made on the stream and do this exact thing with it because it's so fun. And then I don't have time because I have to make more content for you little guys on the stream that are watching me. The art goblins, right? At least that's what I call my students. I'll call my students art goblins. Everyone should be an art goblin. Veteran, yes. Since as if you're a new driver, you wouldn't really drive a Formula One just to pick up some milk at the store. It's very true. I mean, I would. I used to race motorcycles for a living, so you know, depends. But my dad taught me how to be an adrenaline junkie, unfortunately. But I live the calm, normal artist life now. It's different. But yeah, no, it's actually a really good point. Is don't pick up the Formula One racing car, right? Pick up your little dune buggy, little Beetle, your little Volkswagen or your Vanagon or something to start with, and that gets you from point A to point B, right? That's all that matters with this. Is also asking, have you ever had imposter syndrome? All the time. It never goes away. It doesn't matter how long. It sucks because it doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry or you've proved yourself being like, yeah, I've worked on all these big awesome projects. I'm so good. Blah blah blah. You'll still just feel like, I don't know. I always still feel like a student, which I think is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. I think it actually humbles you as an artist. And as an artist, you should want to keep learning and, continuing to make stuff and get better. But it's really hard not to compare yourself to all the bosses that are out there, the bosses of art that we all look up to. But you should find inspiration in them. You shouldn't find sadness in the feeling that you feel like you'll never achieve what they achieve. Art is your own artistic journey and expression. Whatever you achieve is good enough because it's you, and no one can achieve the same things in art that you can achieve. You bring something different to the table that nobody else does. So as long as you try to not be a copycat of someone, you will have fun making art, and you will see value in your own expression and in your own, creative thoughts and things like that, because only you can make what you make, I can't be inside your brain when you come up with stuff, and you can't be in mine. And that's kind of the beauty of it. That's why I love it, because we all have such cool, different ideas. If I gave you the same prompt, like a three-headed, even something as specific as a three-headed dragon, we would all make very different three-headed dragons. And I think that's super cool, and that's super special. That's what makes art awesome, So go be creative, go make cool stuff, and don't be afraid of what you see other people making. Just be inspired by it. Try not to get bogged down by it. It's really hard to, but you can't compare your own journey. I look at someone like, I love someone like James Gurney, and I'm like, man, I wish I could paint like James Gurney. He's so good. But I have two things that I have to remind myself. One, I don't paint and practice every day like James Gurney. So I have different priorities as an artist. So as sad as I am that I can't paint like him, I can't be upset because I haven't put in the work. But also, number two, he's got like 40 years of painting on me. So to compare myself to him is being really harsh to my own journey in art, because I do not have the same amount of experience, nor have I put the same kind of time. And James Gurney might come to me and look at my art and be like, wow, I can't do that. So you just have to remember to be very humble and excited to do whatever it is that you're doing. Because only you can do it. Already failed. Mine would have 4 heads. Hey, there you go. Just not follow the prompt, that's also an option. That's totally fine. I love the idea of giving a prompt and then everybody just never, like, not a single one of you does a 3-headed dragon. It's just like a dragon, 2-headed. Like, artists just can't count. So you just end up with just like dragons. It'd be great. Hashtag 3-headed dragon. You can post a 5-headed dragon. Say you're hiring one of us for junior characters. What are you looking for in the portfolio as well as what we should know? FYI, I've been using Maya since I was in 6th grade, 11 years old, now 30 plus. Awesome. Yeah, I opened up Blender when I was like 12. I found one of their shorts and they were like, all of this was made in Blender. So I tried like modeling a frog when I was like 12, but I didn't understand like what 3D was. Like my brain didn't comprehend like what it actually did. But then I picked up Maya when I was in high school and started modeling stuff. I wonder if I could find my first character model. I still remember what it was. It was like this weird like bat creature thing that I made. Oh man, if I could find it, I would love to show it. That'd be so funny. I bet it's terrible looking now. It could have only been like 20 polygons. Like it was not not good. But that being said, if you're looking for, so as a junior character artist, I mean, obviously in your portfolio, I'm looking for, you have a basic understanding of the pipeline that you'll be doing. So as a character artist, you know, when you're working for games, you take full ownership of, you know, said character. So a lot of that means that you understand how to do high-res sculpting. You know, I want to see good anatomy and design. If you're following a 2D concept or something like that, I want to see, do you have a good comprehension of that concept, right? Such as, you know, are you following their consistent shape language? Because when you have something that's like a 2D concept, you know, what does the back look like? What is the side? Or if there's a problem with something that looks good in 2D but not in 3D, can you problem solve really well for those types of things? And kind of stuff like that is really important, at least to me, when I look at stuff like that. So that's a big one. Having good anatomy and hard surfacing skills. A lot of people think that being a character artist means that you get to just sculpt organic stuff all the time, but that's not true. Most of the time, character artists are it's a lot of hard surfacing work because characters wear clothes, characters wear, you know, all sorts of things. Characters wear belts and whatnot, and so it's actually really important to know how to hard surface all that stuff as well, and be a good kind of rounded artist. So those are the things that I look for. Can you tell a story? You know, if I hand you a very basic sketch of something, how much can you add to that concept to tell a story, to tell me more about who that character is, what that character does, you know? Because it's not only important to know what a character does, but how they do it, right? And how they do it is what gives you the idea of what do they wear, what kind of tools do they have, you know, who really are they, you know, what would they carry around on their persons at all times that would tell you more about that character. So it's a lot of things like that. I'm looking for a lot of passion in the field of, you know, being in the industry, you know, willingness to learn when we talk to you about that kind of stuff. All those things go like a really, really long way. Because if I see that you're looking at that stuff and you're really passionate as a character artist, I can teach you all the technical stuff, you know. That's what I'm there for as a senior character artist. Someone was there for me at some point to teach me the ropes of everything. But they saw that my potential was there, and that I was really passionate about making characters. And so, yeah, generate cool character content is a really big one, and try to follow, you know, cool character concepts, and, you know, practice the whole pipeline from high res to low res to baking and texturing. So I know you have a good understanding of that stuff, but it's not necessarily a full requirement. Even at our studio, it's not a requirement you actually know Unreal Engine, because again, we can teach you that. I can teach you Unreal Engine, but I can't teach you form language and shape language and anatomy as fast as I can teach you what button goes where, right? So really, really hone in on those fundamentals. That's what's going to make you a good character artist. That's what's gonna make you bring stuff to the table that other artists can't. And then efficiency in your pipeline. If you can do things, and you'll get this over time, but if you can learn how to do things quickly and efficiently, you know, it's always a nice plus, but not a requirement. Anyway, I'm 2 minutes over now, but first week at a new studio, imposter syndrome the entire week. Someone asked if this is a game asset or film production. This is a game asset. Real quick and short, because we're out of time here. Oh, you said notice the title, game dev. Got my answer. Yeah, well, I'm here anyway. I was a little late for it, but comparing yourself to James Gurney sets the bar pretty high. I know. That's why I get imposter syndrome. You can't do that to yourself. But anyway, here's where we got so far. So join me next week, and I'll keep on painting. I'll paint up, you know, I'm going to get his ears and all that stuff fixed so we can paint like all the cool webbing and things like that. And continue working on. But remember, this is just looking at, well, actually this is looking at material. If you're looking at just base color, you know, you basically get the same look. He's a little darker. That's about it. And so, yeah, all of our painting helps make the character pop a lot more than just the model. So we're going to continue painting on top of them, and, you know, I'm excited to add like more musculature and things like that within his arms and a bunch of things. So it'll be fairly fun. So go ahead and join me next week, and I'll probably wrap them up next week. That'll probably be the plan. So if you guys enjoyed this wonderful texture painting session with yours truly, go ahead and join me next Wednesday. And then I think we have a break the following week for holidays, and then I'll be probably back on the 3rd. So that's kind of the timeline for right now. So again, thank you guys for joining. I'll see you guys next week, and you guys have a good one. Bye, guys.